Today on the Topping Show, Matt Walsh says America first, America only. Donald Trump says we need H1B Visa holders and more of them. Snap corruption statistics go viral on social media. The Bentley Continental GT Super Sport is revealed. And Jeep gets recalled because, whoops, it might just self-destruct. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, see their founder at least twice a day. Guy says quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or business owner, you can reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapter, so you can mount it to any standard AR-15, like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a flamethrower. And lastly, trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends and your enemies, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, going over to the business part of the podcast, you have the Bentley Continental GT Super Sport revealed, looking pretty darn cool. Now, this brought to us thanks to specifically Motor1.com, one of the writers over there by the name of Jeff Perez. And, well, I usually have to give a visual disclaimer for this part of the show because there's so many modern automobiles that are, well, disgusting looking, but this one actually looks pretty darn cool. Now, he says, quote, Bentley Continental GT Super Sports revealed a 657 horsepower rear-wheel drive masterpiece. New Super Sports model sends 657 non-hybrid horsepower straight to the rear wheels in its most bonkers configuration yet. Here you can see, it looks pretty darn cool. I mean, shoot, those brake calipers are bigger than most people's thighs. And geez Louise, that's some serious horsepower and stopping power. And, but you know me, I'd love to get that in acid green or something. The color even more bizarre. Looks like the base color for this is gray, which I swear, car companies get silver, gray, and black paint for free. It seems to be like 90% of all cars these days. Looking at you, Porsche, but I partially digress. Again, credited to Jeff Perez, and he says, quote, Bentley introduced the Super Sports name in 1925 atop its 4.5-liter chassis. It was the first Bentley model capable of reaching 100 miles per hour, and with success at Le Mans throughout the late 1920s and early 1930s, it helped cement Bentley as a serious contender in the performance luxury space. Now, 100 years later, Bentley is reviving its Super Sports name. This time, it comes from a powerful, lightweight, says, they have to clarify, for Bentley at least, all right, rear-wheel drive sports car based on the current Continental GT, and yes, it'll go well past 100 miles per hour. New Bentley Continental GT Super Sports notches the current model up to 11 with the most powerful twin-turbo V8 capable of 657 horsepower and 590 foot-pound of torque. It's paired with, I know I'm part of like the 5% who will care about this. Granted, this is stratospherically above my income level. I could perhaps afford the keychain from the store at the Bentley dealership, but this is it's paired with an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. Yeah. And that now I do say, importantly, it is not hybrid, which the fact that Bentley has done hybrids for a lot of their vehicles, I can't but think it just shows how stupidly disconnected they are from what the consumers want. I can't but think most consumers who drive Bentleys do not care about the extra 5 more miles per gallon or whatever they're going to get from the hybrid capability of the car. And geez Louise, you thought Bentleys were unreliable to begin with? Start putting more electronics in there, and it's going to get comically worse, which is saying something. Perhaps even more unreliable than a Ford Motor Company vehicle, which that is really saying something. Here you can see the Continental GT from the front, which again, looks awesome. Great angular, great curves, great angles. Nice, huge carbon fiber lip that's probably cost more than my Honda Civic. Now, they say, quote, it takes just 3.7 seconds for the Super Sports to reach 62 miles per hour, find a long enough stretch of road, and will continue to top speed of 192 miles per hour, which, again, for a heavy luxury vehicle, that is really good. In terms of supercar, no. To me, maybe it's just because when I was a kid, the big parameter for a supercar was 200 miles per hour. To me, it's got to hit over 200. So, especially, we'll see the prices for this. It should hit at least 201. Just a little tism of mine, which of course, I have many. You can see a couple more pictures of her. Now, they do say, quote, as the only non-hybrid Continental GT in the lineup, which, geez Louise, this is the only option if you do not want a hybrid. Yeah, interior looks okay. Obviously, probably got about 18 cattle worth of leather in there. Those got to be really comfortable and nice. Oh, but seeing that stupid little automatic shift knob in the middle is so disappointing. I know they haven't made a stick shifter in years and years and years. I know, but still. Now, they say, quote, The Super Sport sheds just a few more pounds compared to its overly complex electrified siblings. Bentley touts that this is the lightest Continental GT to date, keeping the scales. Oh, geez, this is the funny part. This is the lightest one they have, folks, at 4,409 pounds. Wow. Now they say it's over 1,000 pounds lighter than the next latest GT variant at 5,421 pounds. It's no Miata, but it'll do in a pinch. They say Bentley uses a clever electronic limited slip differential to help send all that newfound power to the rear wheels. Also widened the car rear track by 16 millimeters and added torque brake vectoring with rear wheel steering. The steering, suspension, traction control systems, meanwhile, all have been completely recalibrated. They say the double wishbone front and multi-link rear suspension pair with Bentley's 48-volt electric anti-roll system that can detect and quash body roll in as little as 0.3 seconds. The brakes, Bentley claims, are the biggest on any modern production car. Holy smokes. 10 piston calibers with 440 millimeter carbon silicon carbide stoppers in front and 4 piston calibers with 410 millimeter discs in the rear, which, yeah, it's the thing where the rear brakes in this vehicle, which again, traditionally, most of the braking does on the front of the vehicle. That's why the discs and the brakes are, calibers and pads are much bigger in the front of the vehicle. I mean, the rear brakes in this are bigger than most cars in the front. Got more pictures of the interior. That's a really good picture. It looks like it's on some type of runway right there. Well, it looks like a matte gray color there, which, not too shabby. I can see it can grow on me. They say the Super Sports have 3 specific drive modes depending on usage. Touring mode lifts the suspension and softens up the dampers for a more subdued ride. Bentley mode, they literally have one called Bentley mode. All right. Bentley mode sharpens up the throttle response and tweaks the chassis for a slightly more spirited experience. If you find yourself on the infamous Trans-Calvarian Highway, take over to Sport mode to unlock the sharpest, most aggressive settings. All told, Bentley says the new Super Sport corners 30% quicker than a standard Continental GT speed, with up to 1.3 G of peak lateral force. That's comparable to something like the Koenigsegg CCX. Though, unlike the Koenigsegg, this will unlike the Koenigsegg, this will depreciate by like 90% in 3 years. I mean, these things are the comic book definition. I mean, it is just comical. Worse than Mercedes when it comes to depreciating like a rock. Now, I say visually, Bentley threw subdue out the window and went bonkers with balances, skirts, wheels, and wings, all doused in carbon fiber to help reduce the weight. New front bumper features an integrated splitter and is the biggest ever fitted to a road-going Bentley. It's complemented by 2 dive planes on each corner of the bump to help reduce lift. A new rear diffuser continues the Argo theme on back, while one piece fixed spoiler on the trunk generates 661 pounds more downforce than the standard Continental GT. The Super Sports also wear special 22-inch lightweight forged wheels developed by Model A Racing specifically for the car. They say weight savings continue inside, where Bentley has fully removed the rear seats, which, yeah, for this car, they're not going to be used too much. They say, sorry, kiddos, that lightweighting will also include ditching the rear audio system, slimming up the front seats, and removing some of the sound insulation, which, yeah, I'm one of those guys where I don't want sound insulation on a performance vehicle. I want to hear the car, especially the engine. Now, they say, while less insulation will undoubtedly yield a louder ride, it'll at least allow you to hear the full-length titanium exhaust system a little bit better, which is made by a company called Acroprop. I believe that's how you pronounce it. They say the seats themselves are 2 lightweight, heavily bolstered buckets positioned low in the vehicle. Buyers will be able to select from a handful of monotone, dual tone, or even tritone interior combinations with a healthy mix of leather and carbon fiber accents. Chairman and CEO Dr. Frank Stefan Walzer says, quote, "The new Super Sports is more than just the most driver-focused Bentley yet. It signifies a return to Bentley making some extreme cars, ones that combine extraordinary breadth of ability with true driver engagement, while remaining pieces of automotive artwork unique and bespoke to each customer." He continues saying, quote, "Bentley has always thrived when revealing a more daring side, and the new Super Sports is a statement to our intent while celebrating 100 years of the name. This is the first project developed from start to finish since I joined Bentley Motors, and proud of our team and at the speed to which we created this car, so different than the GT on which it is based. As expected, Bentley will only build a couple hundred examples of the new supercars, each individually numbered. Only 500 units are planned globally. The order books are open as of opening March 2026, with production slated to kick off later that year. Pricing for the new Bentley Continental GT Super Sports remains a mystery, but expect a pretty significant price bump over the current Continental GT, which starts, and that's a big key term here, starts at $285,000. Plus, around 10% for the tax man when you register that vehicle. Which, yeah, it is kind of, it is comical. Again, they talk about all the lightweight, and yeah, it's still, over 4,000 pounds. But again, I get it. It's a luxury vehicle. By default, they're a lot heavier than standard. And again, in terms of styling, they look pretty cool. And again, Bentley's mostly nowadays known for, well, I would argue, just Hollywood, the stupid SUV that they made, which, again, I understand SUVs are a very important segment of the automotive market. They're very highly profitable. A lot of consumers like them. Personally, I find them an abomination to the automotive industry myself, but I know a lot of people do appreciate them. And yeah, this looks pretty cool. It'll be interesting to try to turn it or kind of integrate it with pop culture and some movies. And it took me a minute to remember what movie that I remember a Bentley Continental GT being like one of the hero cars in the film. It was Doomsday, so I thought it'd be cool to play that for a minute here. It's pretty bombastic in terms of language. It's a horror movie. But yeah, it was a legendary moment where, one of those end of the world kind of movies, a virus outbreak. And this is one of the hero cars in the film. So this is one of the chase scenes. And again, this would have been so much cooler if you saw the driver, shifting it. Obviously, it's automatic, but to me, this stuck out. I still remember this movie to this day. Now, the funniest part is, piece of crap, vintage police car, standard off the street cars catching up to this. But still, it's a movie. I know.
Bloody believable.
Fuck you! Put your foot down!
I'm tired of running from these bastards. Hold on.
The art
Step on it!
now horsepower. Come on. Great gun. Or in real life. They do it for dramatic effect, but it's like this is Hollywood. Cars got exploded.
Too fucking close.
You think?
It's a movie because this Bentley's stored for like decades and it actually runs, which Bentley's already known for many things, but not
Hold on, we're going for a ride.
You out of your fucking mind?
the manumatic mode, which is a disappointing thing with the automatic transmission, where it's automatic, but you could, shift it. Well, there's no third pedal, of course, but you could move it a little bit, and it'll shift when it's called manumatic, but yeah, it'll shift if you go up and down on the little shift knob. Again, there's no third pedal, and you can't override the computer, so it's like, it would be moderately more entertaining than her just going from, reverse to drive. Still disappointing, obviously, transmission. That's probably one of the coolest things in terms of like pop culture in a movie where like the Bentley wasn't just a show car driving 2 miles per hour up to the club. But yeah, it'll be cool to see this. Maybe we'll see it at a car show someday. Yeah, I'd probably guess it's probably going to cost $500,000, just or yeah, some crazy amount of money. But let me know your thoughts, cause as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the cultural part of the podcast, you have Matt Walsh saying America first, America only. Which begs the question, how many more minutes until Matt Walsh is fired from the Daily Wire? Because, spoiler alert, that's very much not the company's standard policy. Now, this is coming straight from Matt Walsh, or the hashtag Matt Walsh Show over on X. And, he got this little clip right here.
What we want is for someone to unashamedly and single-mindedly advocate for Americans and Americans only. We want someone to say, you know, the only thing I care about is helping Americans. The only people I care about in the world are Americans. And we don't want to just hear that, but we want to see the action taken as well. You know, I've seen some people on social media say, hey, it's America first, but not America only. I disagree. I think it is America only. It's like I said months ago, I consider myself an American chauvinist. America first, America only, I'm an American chauvinist. I don't care about it. This is the only thing I care about. America should be the only thing you care about, especially as a leader of the country.
That'd be nice if you actually had, politicians really put America first. That's been kind of disappointing to see Trump's second time in office, where he's saying a lot of America first things, but then he's starting to disappoint and prioritize other countries and opportunities for other people who were not born here. While we have many Americans who are unemployed, many Americans who are suffering. And yeah, Matt Walsh, him being an isolationist in terms of foreign policy, is the most outlier of opinion you're allowed to have at the Daily Wire. Again, Candace Owens was famously ostracized or fired from the show or the company when she very much started to question, why should we give all this money to other countries, including Israel? And she said Christ is king, and yeah, she was fired. And Matt Walsh, I think he'd be more fiscally successful and culturally relevant and respected if he were to start his own thing and have his own independent media company. And again, with the amount of these days, you could really get a nice webcam and a microphone for under $200. Now, the production of a show wouldn't be as good. He wouldn't get all the cool, fancy camera angles. It'd be some work. But again, I do wonder, will he either get fired first, or is he gonna see the writing on the wall and start his own company and be truly independent? Because again, he's had some clashing of the Daily Wire throughout the years. And again, you look at what Ben Shapiro is saying, what the leadership of Daily Wire is saying. They're very much, their whole stance is, pro-Israel. Ben Shapiro famously, of course. I do wonder how long until Matt Walsh gets fired. Now, this went pretty well. I got 2.5 million views and 28,000 likes. And one of the first comments comes to us thanks to somebody by the name of K4RN1K, which is a name perhaps more awkward and stupid than my own name, Topping. But nevertheless, he says, quote, which way, Western man? He has Matt Walsh sitting on the fence, or AI, and on the left, it has Ben Shapiro. It looks like a war zone with the Israeli flag. And on the right is Nick Fuentes with the American flag, and it's all sunshine and rainbows. That got 1.7 thousand likes. Exorcist says facts. You have Sydney Sweeney says America first. And the ugly gal trying to roast her in the interview says, what about Israel? And she says, did I stutter? Getting 414 likes. Drew Hernandez says, quote, Matt, just leave the Daily Wire already. You'll blow up, man. Getting 445 likes, which, yeah, I do agree. He'd be much more I think his followers, his number of followers would increase, even if, again, the quality of his show from a technical perspective, the quality goes down a little bit. I think it'd be a net positive for his career and his pocketbook. And I would argue mental sanity, because, again, he's working for the Daily Wire. He's got to be stressed knowing he can't say certain things and knowing that, again, his days are numbered. The Daily Wire does not have a great track record for retaining talent. If you don't see, they fired Candace Owens and they got rid of Brett Cooper. It almost seems like every time someone starts to outshine Ben Shapiro, get more views, more likes and comments, all of a sudden they're not there anymore. Maybe that's just a coincidence. Someone by the name of Real Human just has a picture of Nick Fuentes getting 2.6 thousand likes. Degenerate Culture has a picture of AI, of course. Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, or is that Rachel Maddow? I can't tell. They're holding up a golden chair, and upon the chair is Ben Shapiro getting 23 likes. Super Bob says, quote, you cannot be America first until you desert Ben Shapiro. It's as simple as that. Getting 1.3 thousand likes. Someone by the name of Humble Servant says the person you are seeking is Nick Fuentes, getting 1.9 thousand likes. Elon Wi-Fi Little Hat says, hey, Matt, the boss wants to see you in the office. The picture of Ben Shapiro getting 4.7 thousand likes. Gus McGilkey has a picture of Matt Walsh, or AI, or Photoshop, looking at his phone, reminiscing on his phone, scroll in bed, and it's him watching Nick Fuentes getting 660 likes. Let's see. George Alexopoulos says, take the golden handcuffs off, sir. Taste freedom, get 372 likes. Which, again, that's also a big risk. In terms of, again, Matt Walsh has a wife and 6 kids, presumably has a mortgage, multiple vehicles, health insurance is a thing, of course. And again, going out on your own is a huge risk. There can be a huge reward. There's going to be obviously hard times, good times. Again, starting my own tech company is really scary. You risk it all. I've been doing it for 8 years now. It's definitely, you have to have that entrepreneurial drive. Because again, the buck stops with you. And again, it is a lot of risk. It can be a lot of reward. But again, he would lose a lot of resources. Maybe, again, it's all speculation. Maybe he could convince his show producer to go with him, like Brett Cooper did famously. But again, you'd have to pay these people. And then it's not as easy as people think, and yet it is. In terms of, if you really want to go for it, you're not going to let those obstacles won't matter. You will find a way. Just like people say, I always joke, starting a business is like having a kid, and everyone goes, how do you have time for that? It's like, you love it. You love it. There's struggles, there's joy, there's happiness, there's pain. At the end of the day, you work like hell and you make it work. You make the hours. You make it happen. You find more hours in the day. I mean, you have days like my tech company. I have days where, actually not days, I never take time for a lunch unless I'm with a client. Because again, to sit down and eat lunch and take away from doing work is that is precious time. So usually I'll just, I love my Vitabix Blunder, not a sponsor of course, but I guess free plug. I'll usually just blend some vegetables, put a little protein powder if I want like a quick snack on a conference call. But like, it's one of those things where if it's important, you'll make the time, you'll make it happen. So I hope that kind of makes sense. You also have Calvin Robinson says, quote, well, Matt Walsh, stick to your principles, and if you get fired for it, worth it, getting 545 likes. Anthony says, actions for realities. And it's Matt Walsh with, what is it, a yarmulke? And I forget what we call the Jewish hair, where it goes on each side. And it has a bunch of money on his desk, getting 493 likes. Someone by the name of Wigger says, it's happening. Someone with a America First hat just puts his hand on someone's shoulder, getting 615 likes. Ethan has a quote from Ben Shapiro. It says, quote, I think identity politics is bad and immoral. I'm also proud of my Jewish identity and support for the ethno-state of Israel. It got 206 likes. Grady simply has a picture of Ben Shapiro dressed up as the miserable kid from A Christmas Story, which him as the pink bunny rabbit thing, gave 148 likes. Dr. Simon Goddick says, quote, so why do you still work for Ben Shapiro then? Make it make sense. Getting 2.1 thousand likes. Edward James says, this means nothing so long as you work for Ben Shapiro. Do the right thing. Now is your time. Getting 284 likes. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to Matt Walsh. Again, I'm more and more skeptical in terms of I don't think he will last much longer at the Daily Wire. It's also, in terms of you look at the Daily Wire, they are not as viral as they used to be. Anecdotally, again, it's, anecdotal evidence. Everyone I knew, including myself, who had a subscription years ago to the Daily Wire, we've all chose to not renew those subscriptions. For me, partially just because, well, they keep firing good people I like, as well as, again, it's a lot of money. And they're not fighting for the things that I thought they were fighting for, especially when it comes to free speech. I wish they'd do more on Second Amendment. And they weren't really building the platforms they were talking about in terms of, all the kids programming, which I think is an important thing to have actually good content for kids to watch that isn't, just Disney and all that Netflix smoke crap. And the Daily Wire committed like $100 million budget to do it. And, past 12 months, I forget the specific date, but they kind of throttled back the whole initiative. And I do wonder how much longer they can be in business. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the political part of the podcast, you have Donald Trump saying we need H1B Visa holders and we need more of them. Yeah, and that's brought to us thanks to disclose.tv. He says, quote, now Trump says H1B immigrants are necessary since we are not filled with plenty talented Americans. Which, what now? There's a creative Fox News, which somehow still in business. I'm kind of shocked.
There's never going to be a country like what we have right now.
And does that
the
mean
Republicans have to...
And to this reporter's credit, she actually pushes and asks questions, so I appreciate that. That's rare, especially when you get it from some of these folks.
Talk about it later.
And does that mean the H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration? Because if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands
I agree,
of foreign
but
workers.
You also do have to bring in talent. When
Well, we
a
have
country
plenty of talented people
no, you
here.
don't. No, you don't.
We don't have talented people here?
No, you don't have. You don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment, like an unemployment.
Just a quick pause here. There are about 45 million people in the United States on the H1B program, visa program. 45 million. And there are many unemployed Americans. A lot of these are for entry. A lot of these H1B visa holders are doing entry-level jobs. I think darn near any American could be trained on.
In line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did we ever do it before?
Well, let me
When you and I were
I'll give you
growing
an
up.
example. In Georgia, they raided because they wanted illegal immigrants out. They had people from South Korea that made
Hyundai.
batteries all their lives. You know, making batteries are very complicated. It's not an easy thing and very dangerous. A lot of explosions, a lot of problems. They had like 500 or 600 people, early stages, to make batteries and to teach people how to do it. Well, they wanted them to get out of the country. You're going to need that, Laura. I mean, I know you and I disagree on this. You can't just say a country's coming in, going to invest $10 billion to build a plant, and going to take people off an unemployment line who haven't worked in 5 years, and they're going to start making missiles. It doesn't.
Why the hell not?
Doesn't work.
Again, a lot of those jobs, again, there's a big difference between engineering and designing defense things as well as assembling them. And again, I'm not a rocket scientist, obviously. However, usually when it comes to assembly of these things, kind of like the maintenance of most military equipment, you design it to be as simple as possible and reliable as possible. And yeah, in terms of assembling some of these things, there might be some special skills needed. I admit that. But what used to be a program that was intended for very high skill labor and very specific situations has now exploded to pretty much every damn industry, including agriculture, where you have people picking crops. You have people who are waiters and restaurant managers on H-1B programs. What? Any hardworking American could be trained to do those jobs. And if you said, oh yeah, you can't have someone who's been unemployed for 5 years, I mean, first of all, you should be, I think as a country, you should be tracking that data in terms of people who are on unemployment, who have been out of work, and really think, how can we actually, if they've been out of work for 5 years, well, there's got to be, again, there are some people who are permanently disabled. There's, of course, some outliers. Some people who can't work. I think it's very small in terms of the percentage. But again, why not work on ways incentivize, again, Mr. Business, incentivize businesses to hire them, have a training program for them. Again, I'll admit, I used to be wrong about the H-1B program. I used to think it was a great thing and needed for the tech space until I started to see, going to Silicon Valley and working in tech a couple years and realize not all, but a lot of the roles that H-1B visa holders are doing are very much entry-level rudimentary, where they're being trained in how to do it and then doing it for a fraction of the American labor cost. Also, there's a big incentive for them not to complain because their stay in the United States is conditional on that job. Also, they're coming from the countries where they're earning a fraction of what they would, so they're willing to work 24 hours here. So businesses have a big advantage of hiring them, and it's every industry now. It's not just a couple software jobs where, let's say, we're working on like the Manhattan Project 2.0, and you need some very specific skill sets to work on this software to make the AI magic bot work better. You know what I'm saying. You might need, one or two people, maybe of that skill set globally, but also, in terms of taking the best of the best, statistically speaking, about 70% of H-1B visa holders come from India. I believe another 10% from China. Again, if this was truly the best of the best, why would it 70%? That's a lot. And yet, you're pretty much just pushing that country into this country and doing jobs that Americans could be doing. And yet, Elon and Trump are saying, oh yeah, you have to have this. Americans can't do these jobs. And again, there are a couple situations that might be true. It's a very specific, especially if you're bringing a new factory here, a very specific product. You might need to train Americans temporarily with those H-1B visa holders, but then they could leave. It's one of those things where the program has been so widened and abused. 45 million people here on the H-1B visa program? That's a big stress in the housing market, a big stress in the apartment industry, on that market as well. It's clearly displacing American workers. And I've known people in tech and other industries where they've been laid off. They've trained the person from this other country how to do their job, then they do it for like 60% of the cost. And it's a great deal for the person who came around that program because to them it's a huge amount of money. And yet, it's one of those things, this program has been so used, so abused. It's so disappointing of Trump to say this and Trump to have this stance. I don't know who's whispering in his ear, telling this is a good idea. And in terms of betraying the youth, which is a huge, you look at the demographics of who increased their turnout for the last presidential election, the younger folks voted for Trump in spades, so to say. It was huge. Or Trump would say, it was huge. The youth all voted for me because I'm the coolest guy with the memes, as they call them, memes. Except Topping, that moron calls them memes, but you know what I mean. And one of the biggest issues with young folks right now, getting a job and affording a house. Two things that are very much impacted by this H1B Visa program. I mean, Republicans are going to get killed in the midterms. This, mark my word, this is going to be one of the biggest topics that is discussed. And again, Democrats and Republicans seem to think, oh yeah, we'll just keep ramping up this initiative. And again, I'm trying to look at both sides of the equation, both sides of the argument here. There are situations where, and I don't know why I'm just so flabbergasted and annoyed with this take. And again, I thought he was going to fix this problem, and yet clearly, not only is he going to leave it as is, it sounds like he's going to ramp up this initiative of taking jobs away from Americans, increasing the unemployment rate for Americans who, so many Americans are struggling. They're putting grocery bills on payment plans. This is asinine. And I think that's one of the reasons Trump got ratioed here. It got 16.1 million views and 26,000 likes. One of the first comments comes to us thanks to Retard Finder, hashtag #IFindRetards, who says, quote, you have to admit it without having a meltdown. This is retarded. Getting 5.8 thousand likes. Which, of course, if Robert Downey Jr. were to see this video, I don't think he would, but I think he would say something to the effect of, never go for a retard. I'm just a dude playing a dude dressed up as another dude. That might be the worst Tropic Thunder impression you hear all year, but nevertheless, the attempt was made here. Metal Spork has a picture of the United States map that says, our home is not your economic opportunity zone, getting 241 likes. Let's see. Kangmin Jim, Lee says, quote, this is an utter betrayal of the entire base, getting 9.2 thousand likes. Brotherhood also says, quote, almost all the visas are coming from a country where the average IQ is of 75. We're not getting talented people. We're getting cheap slave class for your corporate donors. And it says India and China accounted for 82% of H1B visas in 2016, which, yeah, that is a big, yeah, look at the discrepancies. Yeah. I got 6,000 likes. That was credited to U.S. Department of State, Forbes, and Statista for that statistic there, which, yeah. I also have someone by the name of Barefoot Student saying, quote, Gen Z stare when Trump tells them the H-1Bs are getting jobs to build missiles after running as pro-job, anti-war presidential candidate. It's a City Sweeney looking pissed, getting 1.4 thousand likes, which, yeah. Also, not to get too nuanced or too technical, though I shall, I suppose. Well, there are certain jobs that you can't do if you're H-1B. You have to have additional security clearances. Well, industry for defense industry manufacturing, you have to be U.S. citizen for some of those jobs. So again, there's certain industries where they are displacing more people they're displacing more people in certain industries than others. But yeah, that did get 1.4 thousand likes. What is this? Chu says, quote, how am I to the right of Donald Trump? It's a girl eating salad. Ew, who chews with their mouth open?
My life. I'm having such a good time.
I got 16,000 likes, though. Only Groip says Nick was right in his picture of Mick Fuentes getting 2.2 thousand likes. Data Racer has a picture of Trump, says, I will bring jobs to America. Then it says, for Indians and China. Although it should say for Indians and Chinese, but nevertheless, it got 785 likes. Kittler says, quote, you don't need special talents to run gas stations and hotels. We had those before Indians invaded, getting 9.4 thousand likes, which, yes, that industry has been extremely saturated by Indian immigrants, partially because they have a competitive advantage in terms of labor, in terms of the hotel industry. They have a family, come here, buy a hotel, fire all the staff, have the family work there, live there for free, eat the food for free, which the food is a tax deduction because it's supposed to be for the guest. And again, what is it? 80% of the hotels are owned by of the Patel, not the Patel family, but the last name. I forget that class of Indians. And they grew so much they actually bought G6 Hospitality, based out of Texas, which is the parent company behind Motel 6. So again, now the Motel 6 or G6 Hospitality is owned by an Indian corporation. George Alexandropoulos says, quote, "Crazy idea. What if we train Americans to do the jobs?" Getting 3.9 thousand likes. Yep. Stone Toss Comics, as a picture of a guy pointing to a computer, says, quote, "But there's a labor shortage." Then the side next to him says, "No white men," getting 5.6 thousand likes, which, yeah, there's a lot of discrimination, especially in the tech industry. I won't say the company name. I'll try and keep it as opaque as possible. But I was interviewing someone, and off camera, we were talking about struggles, and a relative of his is in charge of IT for a very big company, and they've had an open position for an IT security folks for over a year. And the reason is because management said they had to hire a black woman. And he gave them like 20 highly qualified resumes, but they were white guys. And they said, no, this job has to be for that. Yeah, so it is a very real thing. And even tech companies, they have employee referral programs. I remember one of them that happens to make servers. I won't say what company it is. But yeah, if you referred someone for a job at that company and they stay there for 6 months, you get a bonus of about $1,000 if they're white. If they're African American, you get $4,000 bonus. So yes, there's a lot of discrimination in the United States still. Let's see. Somebody named a bow-tied ranger as a picture of Charles Barkley looking pissed, getting 1.4 thousand likes. I think that's him. I don't know sports balls. I know Tom Brady and Michael Jordan in terms of, yeah, I'm not good for trivia night for that. Yukon Cornelius says, quote, whoever is advising him on this needs to be fired yesterday. H1B was the last thing we need, getting 4.5 thousand likes. Mr. Sausage has a picture of Trump in 2016 saying, quote, "I'm going to deport every illegal and save America." And it says Trump in 2025. "Do you want a 50-year mortgage? And how about some Chinese students?" Getting 1,000 likes, which, yeah, that's another thing. Trump wants to have more Chinese students in colleges to prop up those woke universities because Americans can't afford there, and they realize a lot of college is mostly a ripoff. Spaghetti World Order has a picture of George Washington kicking an Indian, and it says, "Yeet the Jeet," getting 1.1 thousand likes. Let's see. June Searcher has a statistic but doesn't give, there's no source, so maybe take it with a grain of salt. It's a tweet from April 21st, 2020, when she says, quote, "The United States issues 80,000 non-agricultural guest work visas, 85,000 H1B visas, hundreds of thousands of agricultural visas. Retweet if we need a full memorandum or all on all visas, while more than 22 American citizens are out of work," getting 703 likes. Evan Kilgore simply says, "We've been betrayed," getting 2.1 thousand likes. Srishi has a retweet from End Wokeness who says, quote, "Mass deportations equal lower rent, crime drops, traffic eases, less spending, cleaner streets, jobs for citizens, English in public, cohesive society. To the left, this is a dystopian nightmare," getting 186 likes. Mr. Rogers of Crypto says, quote, "I'm sitting here with a BS, MS, and MBA, laid off by an Indian CEO, locked out of tech by an Indian mafia, and about to lose my house. There's nothing to do with talent in the U.S. It's all to do with fraudulent, nepotistic Indians who are taking over thanks to DEI," getting 855 likes, which there's a famous article about a year ago when an American corporation hired an Indian CEO, and he immediately fired everyone and outsourced all the jobs to India. What was his name? There's over 800 people at that business, and he just fired everyone and outsourced it all to India. Yeah, so that does happen. Gray Mountain says he's blackmailed. This is not the same guy who ran in 2015, getting 360 likes, which I do wonder. I mean, there's something causing Trump to make all these abhorrently, I would argue, complete flipping of I would argue what he stood for. Is he being blackmailed? Is he being threatened? Something's off. Yeah, it certainly doesn't feel like America first. Forum says, "I voted for America first, not America last," getting 986. Let's make it 987 likes. Let's see. Bannisters said, "Do you ever think when he said 'Make America Great Again,' he meant flooding it with Indians to replace you?" Getting 949 likes. Titus says, FFS, "Will someone please stop the disaster of an interview?" Well, the F is Who the F is telling him this nonsense, getting 712 likes? Which, again, I don't think is in terms of, people saying, oh, we can't have these Indians here. I don't think that's the main issue. I think it's you have people come here and displacing 45 million Americans from jobs. I don't care where they're from. That is a huge, what is that? 10% of the U.S. population is now, actually, no, it's more than that. More than 10% of the U.S. population is visa holders? What? I don't care where they're from. And again, that being said, there's some nepotism, obviously, in their culture, but you're displacing Americans. And again, I'm not saying that number should necessarily be zero. However, until we get our unemployment down dramatically in the United States, I think we should put this program on pause. And especially because, again, we've seen the statistics. These aren't the best of the best people that we need for a specific industry. It's entry level jobs that, again, I believe nearly any hardworking American could be trained to do. I think it's very disappointing to see Trump with this new stand. And I think it's going to cause Republicans to lose the midterms. But let me know your thoughts, because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news, you have Snap. Well, some of the statistics around Snap going viral, and the corruption being unpalatable. That's brought to us thanks to Lives of TikTok. And she says, quote, breaking, the Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins to overhaul entire Snap program after major fraud was exposed. 186,000 dead people were receiving benefits. 500,000 recipients were getting double benefits. Every recipient will need to reapply and verify they cannot survive without it. The data is only from 29 mostly red states who cooperated with the providing data. The fraud is much worse, which, yeah, I bet I'd rather say it's even worse in places like California, which I mispronounce as a slight to that weak and conquered state. That's credited to Newsmax.
On day one, when I was sworn in, which was earlier this year in February, the very first thing I did was send letters to every single state in America and said, never before has the federal government asked for the data, but it is a new day. President Trump is the president. We know there's a lot of fraud. We need to help partner with you all to figure out how to make sure that this money and these benefits go to those who truly need it and not rife with fraud and corruption. 29 states, mostly the red states, responded with their data sets February, March, April. So the numbers that you're talking through, those are numbers that we have been collecting and analyzing since early summer, late spring. The fact that this spotlight shined on Snap has allowed us to talk about it. But here's the most unbelievable news I have really just over the last few days, that 5,000 dead people, that was just 1 month. The number is closer to 186,000 deceased men and women and children in this country are receiving a check. Now, that is what we're really going to start clamping down on. 500,000 are getting 2. But here's the really stunning thing. This is just data from those 29 mostly red states. Can you imagine when we get our hands on the blue state data, what we're going to find? It's going to give us a platform and a trajectory to fundamentally rebuild this program, have everyone reapply for their benefit, make sure that everyone that's taking a taxpayer-funded benefit through SNAP or food stamps, that they literally are vulnerable and they can't survive without it. And that's the next step here.
Yeah, and again, it's also, people always talk about, who gets most SNAP? Is it red states? Is it blue states? I don't care where it is. If it's fraud, shut it down. And yeah, there are a lot of people in red states who are on SNAP and government benefits. There are a lot of people who have multi-generational dependency on the government, which I would argue conspiratorially, I would argue the government does, so they guarantee future voters to vote for a bigger, more bloated, more, I would argue, corrupt government. Now, it's got about 320,000 views and 8.2 thousand likes. And again, 500,000 people getting double benefits. I mean, it's no wonder you saw the receipts going viral earlier this year, where people on Snap and EBT had like $20,000 in benefits. Another receipt had, because of the receipt show you the balance, $16,000 in benefits. And you look at the number one thing bought on Snap, it's Coca-Cola, which I would argue is overrated soda to begin with. But again, it's just high fructose corn syrup in a can or a plastic container, and which also does not make you healthy. It just makes you more unhealthy, more miserable, and increasing the cost of healthcare in the United States, because then the U.S. government's going to take care of your healthcare too. Yeah, so needless to say, I think the program needs to be completely, I would argue, dissolved, and let local charities, nonprofits, and churches help out and decrease our taxes so we can give more to our local churches, nonprofits. And one of the first comments comes to us thanks to the conservative alternative. He says, quote, time to doge the SNAP system. I think long overdue. 104 likes. Paul Zupa says, quote, good, make Americans reapply, ban foreigners, getting 83 likes. Sagittarius Eternia says the fraud wasn't a bug, it was the entire system. The left built an economic model based on paying the dead and rewarding criminals with your money. They need a permanent, dependent underclass to stay in power. Rollins is finally auditing the heist. Watch the states that, quote, unquote, don't cooperate squirm. They are states, they are criminal enterprises. Getting 44 likes, going up like a stock, which, yeah. FAFO says replace EBT and SNAP with MREs and watch everyone get jobs, getting 216 likes, which, I mean, that would also just create a whole market of them reselling those to get other stuff. That's the thing right now. They'll take the food stamps they get from the government, resell them for a discount to get cash, or they'll buy food and then they'll sell them. We also have Daniel Hall. It's a picture of a guy at a store, says that'll be $24.95. The guy goes, dang, nice wallet. So it says, yeah, it's a Louis Vuitton. Anyway, do you take EBT? Getting 82 likes, which, yeah. You've seen the viral videos. It's disgusting that it happens. I Love American News says, excellent. It's an AI-generated picture of a gal with a little poster board saying, if you're able-bodied and riot over SNAP benefits, you shouldn't be eligible for them. Good point, getting 146 likes. Sons of Liberty 357, an exceptional cartridge. Says, quote, we live in a society where people use a $1,400 phone to check their food stamp balance, getting 47 likes. Yep. Cheap Talk says, double benefits recipient. A picture of a large gal with a bunch of junk food in her cart, getting 17 likes. House Anthony says, this is bureaucratic violence to catch a few thousand fraudsters. They make millions of poor families, seniors, and disabled vets prove they are desperate, getting 10 likes. A contrarian statement did brew the surface was the ratio, though. America simply responded saying, quote, a few thousand LOL. What's the problem with proving you're eligible to reapply? Getting 12. So I get 13 likes, getting ratioed, as the youth might say. The Only Poem says, if you see one roach on a counter, you assume that you've seen all of the roaches in the building, getting 11 likes. Gordon Carver says, a million or so cases of fraud from 29 Republican-ran states that submitted the requested data. Wait until California, Illinois, New York, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico respond to the total, and the total reaches 20% of the 43 million on taxpayer-paid assistance, gaining 12 likes. So he is ratioed pretty well. Now, the country says it's time to hold DC accountable for what they've done to our country, gaining 45 likes. Magic Finger says cleaning up fraud shouldn't be partisan. If these figures are accurate, then verifying recipients is just common sense. Agree. However, especially Democrats, they don't want to hold anyone accountable. I mean, you look at all the programs they give people free stuff just in exchange for votes. So I would argue just basically bribery. They will resist this, just like how they resist any accountability for checking voter ID. California made a law so you're not allowed to ask to check someone's ID when they vote. That's how much they love corruption over there. Fascinating, also a little ADHD or TISM. Fascinating how Kamala Harris only won states in which they don't check ID. Interesting. Okay, I think she won one other state that they do, but nevertheless. Justin Skibbs said required. Let's see here. And he just said, we need to reapply. Ricky Bobby has a picture of Homer Simpson biting his lower lip. He says, quote, how hard I pronounce the F in F, yeah, I voted for this. Getting 6 likes. Todd from Tampa says, quote, this is the way. Replace SNAP with food, MREs specifically. If it's good enough for our soldiers, it's good enough for those who can't be bothered to feed themselves. Getting 16. Let's make it 17 likes. Let's see. Magic Fingers also says 186,000 dead people on Snap, but sure, tell us again how everything is running smoothly, getting 18 likes. Yeah. Well, again, this is also, we'll see. I'm pretty skeptical. You also see a big chart from Mike Marlowe saying, quote, why you never leave Democrats in charge of anything. And it says federal spending on Snap has more than doubled in the past 5 years. Yeah, right when Biden got in the office, it skyrocketed. Yep, getting 36 likes. But let me know your thoughts because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder the day of Jeep being recalled because, whoops, the Jeeps just might explode. Now, this brought to us thanks to Adam Eastmail over at thedrive.com. And they say, quote, Stellantis recalls nearly 113,000 Jeeps over self-destructing turbo fours. Stellantis built engines with sand debris contamination for nearly 2 years. Which, the fact that people buy Jeep still to this day, you just got to credit them to building a huge cult following where this is not a reliable off-road vehicle, and they will buy it again and again and again and put the stupid ducks on the dashboard. Which, I don't know, I guess they're kind of cute. That's why the gals do it. But yeah, the cult, I mean, the consumer loves this. I gotta give them credit. People love this thing so much, they'll buy it no matter how unreliable it's become past couple years especially. So, again, this is a business blunder, but I do debate will it even affect 1% in sales. Now, they say, quote, the four-cylinder engine used in the Jeep Wrangler and Grand Cherokee 4xe hybrids is at the center of a recall covering nearly 130,000 vehicles per Stellantis and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The risk of loss of power and potentially even a fire in the engine bay. The culprit, per the NHTSA report, is sand contamination during the block casting process, which left debris in the engine. What's specifically glaring is that it seems Stellantis was manufacturing engines with this problem for nearly 2 years, as the report states that, quote, the suspect vehicle population began July 19, 2023, when production of Jeep Grand Cherokee PHEVs with suspect engines began, and concluded on March 3, 2025, when the production of Jeep Grand Cherokee PHEVs with suspect engines ended. A similar story to the Wrangler plug-in hybrids, though those covered an even wider production span of June 7, 2023 to March 4, 2025. All told, the recall impacts 36,840 Grand Cherokee 4XEs and 76,019 Wrangler 4XES across 2024 and 2025 model years. The risk is, of course, catastrophic engine failure, which the NHTSA warns can result in either a fire or unexpected, unrecoverable loss of propulsion, which, yes, when fires go boom, those things tend to happen. Thank you for spelling it. Thank you for spelling that out, government. They say, quote, the only warning such that an event might be occurring is said to be a knocking noise from the engine compartment or a warning lamp on the instrument cluster, which doesn't help too much because those vehicles tend to do that a lot by default. But nevertheless, they say, quote, the report goes on to state that as of October 20th this year, Stellantis was aware of 36 consumer assistant records, 144 warranty claims, 36 fires, and 50 loss of propulsion field reports, and 50 service records potentially related to the issue for all markets. Additionally, 3 injuries were linked to the defect, but no accidents. So, silver lining there. They say, quote, as far as a remedy for the situation, it appears we're still in the early days. Stellantis' official line is that a fix is under development. Naturally, all affected vehicles will ultimately be serviced, but the owners are not expected to be notified by mail until December 29th. Or just watch the Topping Show, where we cover recalls usually weeks or months ahead of when they get the mail. Now, they also say, quote, in the meantime, the automaker recommended its customers avoid driving their vehicles and park outside. Coupled with the OTA update breaking issue a few weeks back, it's certainly not been a good time to own a Jeep plug-in hybrid, which I almost wonder, do you blame the consumer for buying this stupid thing? Again, it's a Jeep plug-in hybrid, and it's supposed to be an off-road machine where, you know, you can have fun off the grid. Spoiler alert, there's not a lot of places to charge your vehicles off the grid. And yeah, it's one of those things where, again, people bought it. And I do wonder, it probably won't hurt sales that much because, again, it's Jeep, the brand, and people love those quirky, funny things. But still, they did this for 2 years. Allegedly, they have someone in the quality assurance department, and they're not inebriated. To know about this problem and not realize it for 2 years, which, again, it's one thing if this is a stupid little, you know, plastic decal that fell off or, you know, some accessory in the car didn't work. This is the heart of the vehicle, the engine, the most important thing. And to not know about do this for 2 years and not realize it, gotta say, as Stellantis, as well as your sub-brand Jeep, you are certainly the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, try to get 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so click that button. Greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback. So I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, and everyone, just stay safe and fight the good fight.